good, Humble fam? How about y'all come on in and let's have us another visit here on the Humble Show. I am Grant Fletcher. Moonbeam Hallows is out this week, but still joining me is my co-host, Brandon Cox. And there he is, Brandon. Hello.
Yeah.
Look, I had a moment I thought you would appreciate not too long ago. Just the other
What
day.
was that?
I was listening to I think I was listening to New York Dolls. I know I was listening to the New York Dolls recently, but
Yeah, a little bit of glammy proto punk.
yeah. And I finished the album, and I was like, Spotify will play whatever it thinks is appropriate. Once you finish an album, if you don't tell it to play something else.
Oh boy.
You may or may not be familiar or not, but whatever. But for some reason, it played Husker Du after that album was over.
Oh, dude, I love Husker Du, man. There was this not curmudgeonly, but kind of curmudgeonly guy who works at a record store. I think it's called Singles Going Steady in Seattle, and he's one of those guys. I don't know if you've ever met with these guys who draw like a line in the sand in the Husker Du's discography, because like back then, for whatever reason, I mean, you didn't have, I don't know, like back then they were known as Husker Du, and then like they sold out, and like they're like, hey, I love this band Husker Du, but have you heard this band Husker Du, who's on a major label now and who's doing all these awesome post-hardcore power pop things that's going to inspire 40 years plus of music? Have you heard of these sellouts?
Yeah, they added that umlaut, and that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah. The thing is, like, that's the crazy thing. They had both umlauts, like in both parts of the name. Yeah. But for whatever reason, the punks call them Husker Du.
Yeah.
And I don't, and like there'll be times I really want to, I know punk music, where I'll say Husker Du, and someone will be like, don't you mean Husker Du? Yeah.
It depends. Yeah, you got to read the room. You got to find out what circle you're in before you know whether or not you're going Husker or Husker.
Man,
but, I recommend it. Listen. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just look up. The song in particular was "Don't Want to Know If You Are Lonely."
If you're lonely, man,
it's a good tune. So look that song up if you've never heard it before. It's good. Don't want to know if you are lonely.
Green Day has a good cover of that song. That's a band that definitely inspired Green Day. But in addition to Green Day, I bought like this 4 LP Husker Du box set like 2 or 3 years ago, and it's put out by a really, really amazing record label called Numero. Not Numero apparently. Another pronunciation of But
how punk are you?
Yeah, but it's 4 LPs, and I know Numero. They put in extensive liner notes. Like, it's something that you have to dedicate a day pretty much to listen to. And it's because of that reason. It's why the box set, the wonderful box set that people put their blood, sweat, and tears into, is still sealed to this day.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of the way to do it, right? If there's another way to enjoy the music, but still keep the physical item as pristine as possible, that'd be the way to do it. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But no, that was a cool little moment. It was a funny thing that happened, and I was like, Brandon would appreciate this. I know you would.
Oh, absolutely.
You and I had never discussed Husker Du before, but I was like, I knew that you would appreciate that.
Oh, so, dude, Zen Arcade, all that SST stuff, like, Zen Arcade and Dinosaur Jr.'s You're Living All Over Me, and Minutemen's Double Nickels on the Dime. That soundtrack, my years, like whenever I was like 18, 19, 20, working at a gas station, like that was my soundtrack.
Yeah, if you don't know who everyone out there in the Humble family, you don't know who Minutemen are, go ahead and actually you do know who they are, because they're the guy who's wrote a song called Corona, which was the Jackass theme song. So singer of that band met a very, very unfortunate end, man. Had a real freak accident, ended his life. Real upsetting, but I digress.
Rest in
Brandon, you
peace,
are out of
T-Bone.
uniform for the second time in a row this week.
Well, yeah. I'm wearing the jorts
Yeah,
and
the jorts
yeah.
and the must die
Look,
t-shirt.
it's summertime, which I think we started this
Yeah.
like well, we started this what back
Like,
in October, maybe? Maybe
no,
September?
dude.
September?
Our next episode. Listen,
Yeah.
our next episode is episode 50.
Oh, whoa.
And we had a couple of like filler things in there too that were not official episodes as well. So we will have met
Yeah.
right about a year with our next episode. So we got to do something big. Well, let's do this. Here's what I want to do,
Yeah.
Rebel Fam. Listen.
Yeah.
Come in close. Listen.
Yeah.
Here's
what's
what I
up?
want to do, okay?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
episode 50, I want to
Yeah.
do a 50 comment drive on YouTube, okay?
Oh.
So for our next
yeah.
episode, if you're listening on the pod players, we do appreciate you all. Thank you for being out there. But when the next episode drops, go to our YouTube page and just leave a comment, about maybe 50 episodes or whatever on that video. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, just keep it in mind, y'all. Just drop us a comment. I want to hit 50 comments on that episode next week. That's my goal.
Yeah.
We'll do a comment drive, a comment and a like drive. Yeah. So drop us
And you
a
know what?
like and a
Here.
comment next episode.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing that I think that we could do. We could respond to each comment. Respond to it at least once.
I try to respond to all of them.
Yeah.
That we get, unless it's something just like absurd. Oh, we talked about this recently before we get into like the meat of the episode, I guess. We talked about it off camera, but we had one situation not too long ago. We posted a short where, I chopped up something out of an episode. We were talking about Sting, and we talked about that Sprite commercial that Sting is in.
Oh, yes.
And if you're not familiar, just go to our shorts on YouTube or check us out. Look us up on Instagram or TikTok at Humble Show, and it's on there. It's probably somewhere towards the top right now. But anyway, I posted that on there, and I intercut scenes for the short purpose of the short. I intercut scenes of the commercial because it's like you're trying to tell this story, in 35 seconds, basically.
Yeah.
And get the point across. So it's like me talking about it and scenes of the commercial coming up, and some guy, I'm saying guy, this is very like early to mid 20s, I hope. Geez. Single incel behavior, goes, "Real cool channel you got here, just explaining to people what they're watching." And gosh. So I replied under our account, "Then don't watch," shrugging emoji.
Yeah.
And then he replied, here's the thing, he replied, and when he replied, as soon as I saw like the notification that this person replied, I was like, "Oh, see, here's the thing. Here's what you don't get. I'm trolling you now.
Right.
You're engaged with me. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me." So he says, "Do better," is all he says. So I'm like, okay, do better, like, as in like make like better like content, like be better as a like typically like when you tell someone do better, you're telling them like you're, a poor excuse for a human being. Like you've done something wrong.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't think that you totally get what that means whenever you're using it. So I said, "That's it, quote unquote, do better." And they replied, I was like, "Oh, I got you now." They're like, "That's it? That's it?" Like basically just repeating what I had just said, just kind of, flipping it sort of around on me. And then they said, "Do better at your job," or "Be better at what you do," or something like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, so you don't know how that works. So then I said, "Why are you so triggered?" And then they didn't respond at all, because I was really hoping, because there's no good response to that whenever someone says that. Because I started basically talking to them like I know that they talk to other people on the internet. You know what I mean? And so that's whenever I went after it. Is Uncle Bob after something?
He sneezed 17 times.
Did he really?
Like he just keeps doing it.
He was laying down and now he's sitting straight up and he's looking a little alarmed.
I think I
settling back
put
in
on the cayenne pepper setting of my AC, which is my bad, dude.
But anyways, all that to say, I think what people don't seem to realize, like when you like comment hate on
Yeah.
someone's post on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, Facebook, wherever, what you're doing is you're telling the algorithm of that app,
It's being
hey,
engaged
this was
with.
something I wanted to engage with.
Yeah.
So you're telling the app, hey, more of this, please. And I don't think people realize that whenever they get upset by something and they have to say something about it.
And that's the thing with like culture in general these days. Like people don't realize that whenever they complain about a piece of media, the marketing is working.
Yeah.
Like to this day, and it's always dudes. It's always dudes with a chip on their shoulder. Like, oh man, I saw the Kardashians. They're doing that thing on their show. I'm like, oh, is that true? Yeah, I mean, it's such a dumb show, and they should really be doing something different with their lives. Like you're getting the word out. You're getting the word out. Like I think that the most diabolical, nefarious thing these days is media that wants people to hate watch it in order to engage. Like I don't want to get too much into it, but that Velma show, there is no like it was put out there to enrage everybody. Whether you were a fan of Scooby-Doo, whether you don't care about Scooby-Doo, whether you're on the right, whether you're on the left, whether you're not non-political and you just have a brain. Like there's so much media out there these days that like if you're out there on social media complaining about it, if you're on YouTube, making videos, just lambasting it, they're doing their job. You have done, not only are they doing their job, you're doing their job for you, getting the word out. Good job on you.
It's true. It's very true. It's it's very interesting to see how your actions in that kind of way could actually just sort of end up giving something life,
Yeah.
and just kind of starting the cycle all the way over, which is sort of an interesting way to segue, I guess, into what I wanted to talk about on this episode in particular, because
Before you segue,
yeah.
Did you know that there was a second season of that Velma show?
No, I didn't realize. So they have put it out. They've officially. Is it a new
They
thing?
put it out.
Okay.
Nobody cares. Everybody has already hated it, which that's the flip side of that sort of marketing. Once people have already gotten all their dislike and hate out, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
That's weird because I really like. It's one of those things. Like I just didn't care about it. Like when everybody was upset about it, I was like, I just don't care about this.
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it because I didn't want to spread the word until after it was dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, that second season came out very recently.
Yeah.
And nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Interesting. Yeah.
But please segue into what you were going to say.
Well, no, again, I mean, things coming back around. It's kind of more of what I was talking about here, what I was thinking about here, because like, okay, so let me just say it like this. So for instance, right off the top here, Southern Nerds Fest, we're having May 25th, 26th in Biloxi, Mississippi.
We absolutely are.
We got a lot of awesome people that are going to be there, including a guy by the name of John Ratzenberger.
Oh, yes.
Who I would say has basically had two careers in acting, right?
Yeah.
Known very well as Cliff Clavin from Cheers, the mailman. And then now known for all of his work in Pixar, right? And he's done plenty of other things, of course.
Yeah.
But most notably, people know him as the guy from Cheers. And then they know him from all the Pixar. They know him as Ham from Toy Story, right? And also the what's the truck from Cars as well?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I know. Cars is is not at the top of my list of Pixar's, but it's got a very big following. People love it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It makes
Huge
sense.
returns on that one.
But that's just one of those things I think is interesting. I think you could argue. So Doug Jones, a guy that we have on as well, Southern Nerds Fest. I think you could argue he has too. I mean, he's done a lot of creature work and whatever, but went from doing commercials and things like that doing like suit work and mime work in commercials, doing movies,
Yeah.
and in some cases having his voice overdubbed in movies by other people to now being trusted as like an actual performer, you know. And
Mhm.
now he's sort of transitioning into out of being as suited as much too as
Which is
well.
a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And it's something that I don't know if we can, you know, pull the veil off of everybody's eyes, but I mean, it's something that he has mentioned to some of us personally, like that is something that he is aiming for.
Yeah.
It
No, I've heard him
I
say it
say it.
publicly, but he and we've also talked about it. Yeah. That he's
Yeah,
trying not
yeah,
to do it
yeah,
as
yeah.
much anymore, you know.
I love those examples in whether it be music or acting or anything. One of my favorites, just because he was such a very impactful voice whenever I heard him in animated films, and then growing older, I'm like, I realized like, oh, he has a storied history of amazing acting as well. Is Dom DeLuise?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh, Love me some Dom DeLuise, whether it be live action, him acting, or his voice acting, and they were both, I would say, equally iconic. I mean, his acting carried, but his voice, that voice, I adore it.
You know who else you could probably say too? Someone we've worked with a lot is a guy by the name of Johnny Young Bosch. Um,
That is very true.
you
Yes,
know, his big breakthrough role was Adam Park on Power Rangers, the second Black Ranger.
yes,
And now he's like a huge name in the world of anime. And so much to the point that like at Alabama Comic Con, not last year, but year before, my family came with me. My wife and my daughter came because my daughter, Adam, is her favorite Power Ranger.
yeah.
And so she was going to go meet him. He was only there that one day. He had something to shoot. So he was only on Saturday. So they're like, well, we got to go get in this line. So we're in this line and they're talking to this mom and her daughter who's a teenager.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, your daughter like wants to meet Johnny Young Bosch? That's interesting. She's like, yeah. I'm always like, yeah, he's like her favorite Power Ranger. And this girl was like, he was a Power Ranger? And they're like, yeah, that was like what he did, like, you know, in the 90s. And they're like, oh, no, I like him from Demon Slayer. You know, I like him in Bleach. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah.
and I mean, and Trigun, that is my favorite anime. So I'm not, you know, I like anime. I don't go quite as far in as a lot of other people do, which is great. I mean, I love that people do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like Trigun a lot from, you know, early on. So that's one that I would say too. And actually, look, I didn't even think about this as well, but we've mentioned it before. Sting is a guy who's had, you know, a couple different careers as well in as far as in wrestling goes. You know, went
Is
from
that
being the surfer.
true?
Well, he went from being, you know, the bright colored, you know, surfer.
Oh, you're talking about, like, as far as, like, stages in wrestling,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, to like the Crow character that doesn't speak much. To sort of like he went to like a Joker inspired character.
Yeah.
And then went back to, you know, the Crow, and that's pretty much where he was whenever he stayed. I mean, kind of like morphed and changed over time
I
within that character, but still, yeah. What were we
I
saying?
thought you were about to give me, and I know I've already, goofed on this guy before, but I thought you were about to give me, like, a Hulk Hogan-esque background where he was, almost bassist for
Oh,
Metallica, and he whereas most mortal humans live, 365 days, Hulk Hogan lives 400 days a year,
yeah. That's
you
he has
know.
actually has made the claim that he had 400 days in a year because going back and forth to Japan, he claims he gained a day. You know, it's a whole thing with
Yeah,
with
dude,
him and
yeah,
that
hey, look,
guy.
look, all the
You
all
can
the
Google it
brainiacs at home
honestly
do the
about all the
math.
tales he's told. It's pretty public by now,
Yeah.
so you know, yeah. hmm But no, so it just kind of got me thinking about like people that have had different, like more than one career, you know, as in acting, or
Yeah.
made like a big comeback, or like
Yeah.
reinvented themselves. Like I would say, you know, you say like John Travolta had this weird comeback that he had, right? Like
True, in the
um
early '90s with, Pulp Fiction, yeah.
Pulp Fiction, and maybe even before that was Broken Arrow, I believe. I think
Yeah.
might have been the first one if you haven't seen Broken Arrow. Christian Slater's in that one. But yeah, I mean, he was kind of like the guy from Grease and Saturday Night Fever and did some things, you know, but not
Yeah.
really. And then kind of, you know, relaunched it there, like you said, early 90s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Look Who's Talking, I don't think really propelled him too far ahead.
It's
You know.
it's one of those films that I feel like as the decades go on, fewer and fewer people will see it, and it's one of those films that's like, "Hey, look, I really love this one. You kids gotta see it." It's like, look, if they see it, they see it, you know? It's,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's just really pumped about the Look Who's Talking series, mostly because I remember some of the dialogue and it being very, not great.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that probably hasn't aged well, but I don't
Oh,
know,
I
I don't have
guarantee you
enough
hasn't.
knowledge of it to really call it out and be a real mean internet guy about it.
Yeah. There's that. I just looked it up. Pulp Fiction is a couple years before Broken Arrow. So there's that. But yeah, he had a lot of things that just didn't chart, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then he did Michael, but we don't talk about that. We do talk about Face Off, but that's a whole for a different reason.
I not only look, like, Face Off is one of those, like, films that, like, not only is it a goof fest, but, like, if you're feeling like, it both serves the serious and the ironic ends of the spectrum, I think.
Mhm.
There are clear goofs in the action, and, I keep using this word, but it is a goof. But at the same time, as far as 90s action flicks go, it's on up there.
In context, you know, when you take it in that context, yeah, pretty good, right? It's like
Yeah.
totally off subject, but the 1989 version of The Punisher. You know.
Oh, I never saw that.
Oh, listen to this. Dolph Lundgren plays the Punisher in this movie. And it's one of those ones where it's like it's not a great movie,
Yeah.
but in the context of being a late 80s action film,
Yeah.
you know, whenever Terminator and, you know, Commando and everything else was coming out,
Yeah.
pretty solid movie, you know. Not
I probably
not great,
I
but worth a
probably
watch. Yeah.
yeah, I need to see that in addition to that early to mid 90s Fantastic Four film that was never released. It was only made to retain the
The license.
copyright to the
Yeah.
license to the franchise. There's actually a term for those sorts of films that I cannot remember, but like apparently it's a pretty common thing. Like, did you know that there is an entire like 3 or 4 season Blazing Saddles TV show that was never released?
Really? And
Yes.
they made
So
multiple seasons of this just to hold on to the license?
I wish I currently I
Did
look
you
it
say
up after
seasons or
this. I wish
episodes? I'm sorry.
seasons.
Seasons. Yeah.
There were people that went to work for years on a show that never aired. Like
You
they
gotta
made
wonder, like after you film the first season and you're like midway into the second one, and it hasn't aired yet, you're not asking questions?
so I forget the it was some sort of deal that they made with Mel Brooks. It was
Yeah.
like Mel Brooks was like, "Okay, you cannot." What? It was something like you cannot air a television series for Blazing Saddles for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm probably about to tell a story right now, but I think
But
that
it'll be entertaining.
the studio I think that the studio was like, "Okay, bet." And they started filming a series. It's like, "Okay, we'll start airing this 5 years down the line." Well, 5 years down the line, most like 99.9% of films have, like, lost their luster, and, like, if you don't strike when the
Yeah.
iron is hot, then who the hell cares?
Right.
Well, and once again, there was a series that was made, there were multiple seasons. There was, like, there were 1 or 2 episodes that did make it to DVD, like, on in special features, but there is an entire Blazing Saddles series that 99.9% of people have never seen before.
That's insane to me. That's impressive actually.
And
Um,
it continues to this day with Batwoman and some other like animated film that Max made that they were just like, well, it's better if nobody ever sees this. It's more beneficial to us financially if nobody ever sees it.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's the way it goes, and maybe yeah, I
It's
don't
the way
see
it
how that
goes.
would play after a while. Too. I think like I don't know. I just feel like I feel like they tapped that well out with that movie, like in a good way. Like I feel like they, you don't need to go back to it
You don't need a
after they've
series. You
done it,
really
right?
don't.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things just need to be. You just need to let them lie as they are, and just let them be that
Dogs.
thing, like a
Yeah.
dog. Yeah, let it lie like a dog. Exactly. You know who else I
I
was thinking
see.
of too that had another go at their career, or like kind of
Yeah.
reinvented themselves and had a big comeback? Would have been Winona Ryder. I think did too. Like if you look at her catalog, she worked pretty consistently,
Really.
but like on a lot of things that you've never heard of, you know. And then she kind of fell
Like
off,
what?
and then she got caught shoplifting at some point in time, and I guess that sort of tarnished her reputation in a way in the media,
Which
even though
is
it was
so
shoplifting. I mean, come on. But I mean, she
yeah.
did some things. She was in like Scanner Darkly and things like that. But I think really a big thing for recently, whenever she did Stranger Things, and maybe the turn
Yeah.
happened
Yeah.
before that too. But I'm just kind of thinking I don't really think so. Um, I don't really think that's the case. But I think Stranger Things was the big turning point, for her more recently.
What do you think the most jarring, like, return or, like, change in career? Like, and
Gosh,
not in an embarrassing way, but just like, "Whoa, I was not anticipating that."
I don't know. I mean, I think well, Robert Downey Jr. I think is the one that everyone holds up the most. Um,
Yeah, because he was going downhill fast.
yes, yes,
And
and
what's the story? Like, he, like, ate at a Burger King, and he's like, "Oh my god, I gotta get sober."
yeah,
Or, like,
yeah. He
something
said he
like that.
like got Burger King and like drove to the beach or something and ate it and realized it tasted bad or it was disgusting, and he
Yeah.
like had this epiphany and he like threw it away and got himself. Yeah, I mean, whatever. But yeah, I mean, went from that to being what probably the highest paid guy on a multi billion dollar franchise.
Yeah.
I'd say that's a pretty drastic turn, pretty jarring turn. I think when you take someone like Will Smith,
Yeah.
and you go from Fresh Prince to Bad Boys,
Yeah.
um, that's kind of like jarring,
It's
like that's kind of quick,
pretty jarring, especially
Yeah.
considering that he was always so, um, outspoken in his musical career, like, "I'm not gonna use any of those
Yeah.
bad I don't need to." And then which I mean,
And not to
acting
say that Bad Boys is like excessively vulgar or whatever, but
man,
was
I don't know. There's a scene in Bad Boys 2 where, like, there's a cadaver, and it's a very busty woman who,
uh,
as most cadavers, is not wearing any sort of top, and I think her head falls off, and it's just like Bad Boys 2 is just an excess of just like it's just death and nudity and cursing, and man, that movie was badass whenever I was 14 years old.
well, I was gonna say, so Bad Boys, the first one comes out in '95, mid '90s,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
very much did what it had to do to fit in with. We talked about movies fitting in with their time, right?
yeah,
Very much did what it had to do to fit in with the action films of the time.
yeah.
And then Bad Boys 2, again, early 2000s, very much did what it had to fit in with the time. And we've talked a little bit about 2000s comedies and their place in cinema and how they go places where you couldn't or shouldn't go these days. So
Absolutely,
I mean,
which
that again, like if you watch like a season of Fresh Prince, like I don't know, maybe not like the last season, but watch like I don't know the second to last season of Fresh Prince. and then watch Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2, and you're like, oh,
Yeah,
that can't be the same guy.
and it is.
Yeah, and yet it is, and here we are. Like Men in Black, you could be like, okay, yeah, sure, this guy did Fresh Prince, but not Bad Boys, not Bad Boys 2.
No.
Rush Hour. You know, I'll even concede Rush Hour as well.
So
You know. Mhm.
I guess I would say like I have a few more like extreme examples in my mind. One acting, one musical. The actor, I would say that just went from was maybe not 0 to 100 as in like quality wise, but 0 to 100 like what are you doing? Would be Marlon Brando.
Mhm.
Marlon Brando, he was in fantastic films, A Streetcar Named Desire, The Wild One. You can argue like push the envelope, but then he did like
Apocalypse Now.
Last Tango in Paris
Oh.
and pretty much anything after that. Like, I mean, like, especially during his later years, he was clearly, at the very least, eccentric. Uh, but he was more than likely mentally unhinged.
Well,
Um,
oh, sorry, what were you saying?
he was more than likely mentally
Oh yeah,
unhinged.
probably. I mean, he was just over everything, I think. Well,
Yeah,
and also he played in Superman, the first one, with Christopher Reeve. He plays Kal-El's father,
yeah,
and they're putting him into the the pod for him to
yeah.
escape, and he's holding him up. So he's got this baby, and they actually had written his lines or like taped his lines to the baby's diaper so he could read them because he just wasn't going to learn his lines.
No, why would he?
But I mean, they were only using him in this like one little scene. He was like, "Nah, I'm just not going to bother." They
Yeah,
were just
no,
using
no.
him for his name, just to have him in the movie. Yeah. So yeah,
So
that's a thing that happened with
So that
him.
so that's Marlon Brando. That's the actor. Then
Yeah.
I feel that anybody who has seen Last Tango in Paris is just like, oh my god, like a major like studio actor was in this. Oh my god. But I would say on a musical level, Grant, are you familiar with Scott Walker?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't know if I could tell you much about Scott Walker off the top of
So
my head.
I would heavily suggest to you and all of our viewers and watchers at home the documentary film. I think it's 30th Century Man. I think it's called. I could be
Okay.
wrong. Just look up Scott Walker. He is an artist that people like to, kind of gloss over the 60s, like, oh, yeah, the Beatles. But like you had a lot of
Yeah.
contenders with the Beatles. You had a lot of people don't realize, but like in the US, like Creedence Clearwater Revival, they were the US Beatles.
Hmm.
In addition to the Byrds. The Byrds were humongous, but in addition, in the UK, you had the Walker Brothers. It was a trio of it was a vocal act, but then like you had a backing band. They played a lot of like I won't say easy listening, but a lot of like sort of like pop rock sort of tunes. But you had amongst those Scott Walker, and in addition to that, he had his first four solo albums, very very critically acclaimed. A lot great like baroque pop, just like great, amazing like pop that was orchestrated, and he crooned over it, but not in a sort of like U.S. sort of crooner. Like he had a very operatic voice, and like
Huh.
his music was very touching. And then for years, like after four albums of him doing whatever he wanted, the label was like, "We just spent this amount of money on four albums of you doing whatever you want. You got to make us some hits." So like he had like a variety show that they made him do, and like he had like a god like four or five albums of like country western like covers, and like it was it was dire for him like artistically for a while. And then the Walker brothers got back together, his band that he was in. They got back together and they made one last album, and it was weird. It was really weird. Like, very, like, proto new wave, post-punk sort of thing in, like, '77. Like, really odd, peculiar, catchy, catchy stuff that did not
Mhm.
sell. It did not sell. Like, it was one of those, like,
Catchy, but let's
NSYNC.
be clear here. It didn't
Yeah.
go anywhere.
It
Yeah.
was one of those NSYNC. I'm sure, like, in about a year or so, NSYNC will, like, well, no, NSYNC will release a terrible electro pop album, and then they'll be done.
Right.
But, like, this was the opposite. This was an instance of, like, okay, let's go out on a creative peak, on a creative high note, and they did, and it was weird. And then Scott Walker continued solo. And so that was 77. Like, I think 82, he released another album, really, really weird post-punk new wave stuff. Very strange. Did not sell. It's weird. He's out of the limelight. And then he released Tilt about a decade later.
You know what's funny is I have not listened to this album,
Yeah.
and Mr. Hartgrave was telling me about this album on whenever I was on his show, his channel,
Really?
a while back. Yeah,
He,
yeah.
you know what? Let me guess, because I was going to lead into this because this is the main thing that I know. Scott Walker released an album called Bish Bosh,
Okay.
and one of the one of the main instruments of note on that album was someone punching a slab of meat. That was a very big part of that album as far as notable instruments. So Scott Walker basically, like, went through a series of, like, he was always an artist. He was always an artist. But he just went, like, starting in the 90s, it was just like this weird post-industrial dark ambient singer-songwriter music that he so crooned over, but just it was so strange and harrowing and unlike anything anybody has released before or since. He went from, like, pop stardom in, especially in the UK, but also he had some hits in the US, I think, to, like, obscure avant-garde craziness that I love and respect. And I love and respect that in, like, any artist. I think that there's a lot of talk these days about, like, nobody ever talks about selling out these days. It's like, yeah, son, get that bag, get that money, come on. And, like, nobody really blames anybody for selling out these
Yeah,
days.
it's not like the
Um
it doesn't have the stigma anymore.
and I'm, to a certain extent, okay with that. I think that once you cross certain I don't know, like, moral lines, I think people should start saying, like, hey, no, 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 don't shill crypto. Don't shill crypto to your
Well, yeah,
12-year-old
that's a little
man.
different, right? Yeah.
Don't do that.
Don't
But no,
sell
there's
people
just something.
reverse mortgages, okay?
Yeah, there's just something to be said for any artist in any medium that gets their fame, that has their time in the spotlight, gets their bag, and then it's me time.
Yeah.
It's time to get weird. I want to push the envelopes. I want to do all the things that are in my head. Nobody's gonna stop me. Here I go.
You know, if we're talking about music, the one that I will always like to point to, I mean, people always point to the Beatles, of course, you know, when they
Yeah,
discovered LSD. But
yeah.
yeah, I always like to point to Depeche Mode
Oh,
because,
yes,
you
yes.
know, they release Speak and Spell and they're up there in their suits and they're singing Just Can't Get Enough and they're smiling and they're dancing
Yeah.
around. And then gosh, what was the follow-up album to that one? I don't know. Anyway, but it's
So
like the next album basically.
yeah,
Um is you know, you start to get things like you know, Precious and all that good stuff too. So,
yeah.
you know, I mean, like, and people will point to like Personal Jesus and things like that. And yeah, for sure, that's definitely part of it. But there's a lot of darker songs
I
on
feel like a
there
lot
that
of
in
the,
the huh?
I feel like a lot of those, like, synth pop new wave acts that decided to dabble in the new wave underground were incredibly brave,
Yeah.
insanely brave. Um, I don't know why the band is eluding me right now, but who did oh shoot talk? Oh no, hold on, what was it? It doesn't matter. There were a plethora of like new wave acts that like could have gone down the predictable path that they went down, and instead decided to embrace underground sounds. And I don't think that they get enough appreciation for that.
Yeah. It's true.
Oh, I
But
just
yeah,
remember.
no, as far as Depeche Mode goes, I think Violator is the album for me. But anyway, I digress. What were we saying?
For mine was I just remembered Tears for Fears. Tears for Fears were going down like sort of like like their first album was kind of like post punky, new wavy, and they could have like they were clearly going down a pop trajectory path, but instead they had like industrial tinges in their music. Same with of all people Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson, Rhythm Nation
Hmm.
had industrial tinges to it, which they could have gone down the status quo path, but instead they had little tinges of industrial music in it, and I loved it.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to see, and like I said, it's just cool to see like all the different like when you really think about it, all the different actors and musical acts and just different types of entertainers that just totally reinvent themselves or relaunch their careers in sort of a way. Um, I really like that, and it's really cool that like we work with some of these people now.
Absolutely.
Um, kind of blows my mind. Look, man, if you would have told me, let me explain something to you, okay? If you would have told me, like, whenever I was like, say my daughter's age, 7, like,
Yeah.
all I wanted to do was meet the Power Rangers.
Oh, yeah.
And now I work with the Power Rangers. You get what I'm saying, right? Like when I got a little bit
It's
older, all I wanted to do was like meet pro wrestlers, and now I work with pro wrestlers. So, anyways,
it's one of those things that'll sneak up on you
hmm
because, like, you're in the moment. It's someone that you have to on stage help present an experience with,
oh, for
and
sure,
it doesn't matter. And the thing is, we're all folks.
yeah,
We are all folks. Now that like the likes of Prince is dead, like
yeah,
we're just all folks now.
hmm
Um, I feel like superstars and rock stars and that sort of thing. It's a bygone area, a bygone era,
yeah,
for
I think
better for
so.
worse. And now
You're
we're
right.
just kind of all folks. But then
Hmm.
you look back and it's like, wait, who was I presenting on stage?
Yeah,
Wait, did
yeah, it's
what?
weird, right? Like, I had
Yeah,
someone very recently ask me, and I mean, sometimes I get asked this, but what's it like to work with all these famous people? And I was like, well, the thing is, I have, it's my job to work with them.
yeah,
I have to be cool about it because if I'm not, then that's no longer my job. So,
right.
it's one of
And
those
if
things. And I hate to
yeah,
say that I'm like desensitized to it. I don't know if I want to use that word, but because it's cool. It's cool to work with everybody that I've worked with,
yeah,
in some way, shape, or form. It's cool. It's a cool job. I like doing what I'm doing. I like interviewing people. I like being on stage and just cracking a bunch of jokes and making people
yeah,
laugh and just kind of being loose with it or whatever. But it's one of those things that like you can't lose sight of it. You know what I mean? Like you have to appreciate it. That's a lot of fun. I'm
absolutely, yeah,
actually starting to release just like little snippets of certain things here and there. I have a couple little videos from some panels from Mobile Bay
I've
Anime Fest on my social media, up on my
seen
Instagram. You can
those,
find
yeah.
that at Grant L. Fletcher. And on TikTok at real Grant L. Fletcher. Because I don't know who got the other
Not
one,
that
but
fake one.
that other guy, that's the fake one. But yeah, so I'm putting some stuff up there just to kind of like show people little snippets of what's going on out there.
Yeah,
You see what's really fun about that. And also, news and notes wise as well, before we get out of here, I just saw, I hadn't talked to anyone about this, but as we were about to hit record for Southern Nerds Fest, the Southern Nerds Fest has partnered with Streamily. So what that means is
Tell
if
us
you
about
cannot,
Streamily.
what's that?
Tell us about Streamily.
Well,
What is that?
what it means is if you can't make it to the show and you want to get autographs, personalized autographs, you can go to our link and you can get in on the action there. So if you can't actually make it out to get something signed, we can take care of you in some other kind of way. If you go to Southern Nerds Fest, Southern Nerds Festival on Facebook, I see the link right now on Facebook. It's probably out there on the website too, but Southern Nerds Fest, it's all one word, Southern Nerds with one N. There's a post up there towards the top. There's a link there, streamily.com/Southern Nerds-Festival. But just click the link on the Facebook page. And you can get some more information about that. And there's like actually a schedule up there too as well. So yeah, so that's what's going on right now. So that's a really cool opportunity for folks who actually can't make the drive out to Biloxi. But I do recommend you do make the drive to Biloxi. One, because Biloxi is a lot of fun. And two, we're a lot of fun, right, Brandon? We're a lot of fun. We're going to have a good time. And if you're watching the show and you're making it out to the show, to Southern Nerds Fest, make sure you come say hi to both me on the main stage. Make sure you say hi to Brandon at the merch booth. Get you a pin or a sticker or a cool shirt. Brandon's going to have some. Look, we have cool shirts, man. We always have I'm never involved in that process. So I always like to put over the shirt situation that we have going on. Moonbeam's designed some. Green Devil Artwork works on some of them, depending on what the shirt is.
Yes, he does. My God, both of them are absolute talents.
Dude, Green Devil, amazing. He does so much, such awesome work. Really cool. But I digress. Well, look, y'all, again, next episode is going to be episode 50 of this show. So subscribe right now so you don't miss episode 50. And again, we're going to do the 50 comment, 50 like drive on episode 50 as well. So please make sure you come back here next week. Hit us up over on YouTube. Drop us a comment. Drop us a like. It's going to be a lot of fun over there. Brandon and I will be back next week for episode 50 with Moonbeam.
I bet Moonbeam will be as well.
I bet she will be here too because I'm going to tell her about all of this. We'll be back here next week with her together for another visit here on The Humble Show. But y'all, until then, stay humble.